I, a 32-year-old woman, have been married to my husband Ryan, who is 35 years old, for 4 years now. My background is quite different from Ryan's. I come from a broken family where my mother struggled with addiction, and my father had to care for me and my sister. Unfortunately, my sister chose to live with our mom and also became addicted, leaving me with a sense of isolation. In contrast, Ryan's family is a tight-knit and extensive clan. He has a brother, 3 sisters, numerous uncles and aunts, all of whom are incredibly close. They celebrate Christmas together every year, which is a heartwarming experience. I'm truly grateful not only for Ryan, but also for his family. Ryan and his brother Cole don't always see eye to eye, with some remnants of sibling rivalry, though they generally get along. Their fundamental difference lies in their worldviews. Ryan, coming from a big family, has always wanted to have a family of his own, a sentiment I share. I've never experienced the joys of a large, supportive family and the constant activity in the household. On the other hand, Cole vehemently opposes having children. He and his wife, Ruth, refuse to have kids or even be around them, which has become a major point of contention between Ryan and Cole. Things took a turn for the worse when I became pregnant. While everyone in the family was ecstatic and in celebratory spirits, Ruth and Cole acted as though a great tragedy had befallen me. Their comments were hurtful, suggesting I should plan a farewell party instead of a baby shower because I'd be saying goodbye to my life. They also made insensitive remarks about how I'd become fat and ugly for the rest of my life. Ryan attempted to intervene, but they remained stubborn, so we decided to limit contact with them. Fortunately, Ryan's sisters supported our decision, as they were also fed up with Cole and Ruth's behavior. All 3 of them had kids of their own, and Cole and Ruth were never willing to assist, even in emergencies. My pregnancy was challenging, especially as we were expecting twins, and I battled severe nausea and debilitating swelling in my feet by the end of the 2nd trimester. I used to struggle after walking just 20 meters, gasping for breath. Throughout this challenging period, Ryan had been my rock, offering unwavering support. His sister, Allison, also came to our aid. Among Ryan's 3 sisters, 2 resided in other states. However, Allison, the eldest, lived in the same city as us, and her assistance was a true blessing. Allison herself had a 3-year-old daughter named Sarah, who was an absolute sweetheart. Sarah adored spending time with both Ryan and me and never missed an opportunity to help with babysitting. When my twins were born, our entire family came to celebrate the joyous occasion. However, Cole and Ruth, Ryan's brother and sister-in-law, were notably absent. Despite the help from the rest of the family, managing 2 infants was quite a challenge, but having the support of my family made things more manageable. Then, one night, at 11 p.m., I received a call from Child Protective Services, CPS, informing us that both Ryan and I were required to immediately go to a specific address. I explained that I had twins and at least one parent needed to stay with them. CPS insisted that I come while leaving Ryan with the children, as they had received a report of an unattended child alone in a house a few streets away, and that house belonged to Cole. My mind raced with a million thoughts as I made my way there. Initially, I assumed it was a mistake. I even considered the possibility that one of the 2 had a secret child, but it seemed highly unlikely. Upon arriving at the house, I saw several officers present and a terrified, sobbing Sarah. She was crying so hard that it seemed her lungs might burst. Without hesitation, I rushed to her and embraced her tightly as she clung to me. Sarah's emotional state shocked me. Allison was nowhere to be found, and the CPS representatives began asking me how I knew Zara and if I was aware of her mother's whereabouts. I explained that she was my sister-in-law's daughter, and I was often the one to babysit her in case of emergencies. It left me bewildered as to why Sarah was in this situation. They requested that I call Allison, but she was not answering her phone. Additionally, they inquired with the person who had informed them about what he had witnessed. He explained that he had witnessed a tall woman with short brown hair driving up with Sarah a few hours earlier. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law, Colin and Ruth, were present in the house at that time. According to the witness, he saw them engage in a heated argument for a while, after which Allison left the house in tears. Within an hour and a half, both Colin and Ruth left the house with bags and everything they needed. When the witness inquired about Sarah's well-being, they dismissively told him to mind his own business. This incident occurred around 8 p.m. The witness waited for their return, but when they didn't come back, he decided to call CPS. I was livid. It felt like steam was coming out of my ears. I couldn't believe the audacity and insensitivity of Colin and Ruth. I was also upset with Allison. Why hadn't she called me? Why did she have to leave Sarah with those two irresponsible individuals for such a long time? My anger led me to file a complaint with the police against Colin and Ruth. I didn't care about the consequences. All that mattered was Sarah's safety. When I returned home with Sarah from the police station and shared the details with Ryan, he disagreed with my decision. He insisted that, regardless of their actions, Colin and Ruth were still family, and we didn't know their reasoning behind their behavior. Now, I'm starting to question whether he might be right. I don't have the full story, and my decision to file a complaint might have serious consequences. Despite Sarah's safety, I'm doubting my judgment. Was I too hasty in going to the police without knowing the complete truth? Eventually, we managed to reach Allison. CPS had also contacted her, informing her that Sarah was with them. Allison explained that her husband, Mark, had met with a severe accident, and she had to rush to the hospital. In this emergency, she had contacted Colin and Ruth, asking them to take care of Sarah for just one night. She had promised to collect her the next morning. Allison had even packed Sarah's food, and Sarah, being a quiet and undemanding child, wouldn't have caused them much trouble. All these arrangements were made through texts and calls before she dropped Sarah off at their place. Allison didn't want to burden us because she knew we were already dealing with a lot. When she left Sarah with them, they began berating her, claiming they were child-free and had no time for such responsibilities. Allison pleaded with them because Mark was in critical condition, and she couldn't take Sarah to the hospital with her. Reluctantly, Colin and Ruth agreed. After that, Allison had no idea what happened. She called them at 10 p.m., and they assured her that Sarah was fine. It was only when CPS called her that she realized they had left Sarah alone and gone on a vacation. She was sobbing uncontrollably, mentioning that now that Mark was out of danger, she faced the risk of losing her child. Ryan drove her back from the hospital, and we managed to put both her and Sarah to sleep. Ryan's anger was palpable, and it was the angriest I had ever seen him. He made numerous calls to Cole, at least 20 or more times, but it all went straight to voicemail. My disdain for people had reached a new low, and Colin and Ruth were the ones responsible for setting this new standard. It was indeed a harrowing day. Cole and Ruth eventually returned home. They had been summoned for questioning, and they were furious with me for reporting them when, in their opinion, it was none of my business. I firmly told them to back off, emphasizing that their child-free status should not take precedence over helping the family in times of such distress. Their child-free choice should not outweigh the safety and well-being of a 3-year-old child. I stressed that anything could have happened to Sarah while she was left alone in a house that was not child-proof. I urged them to reconsider their priorities. Fortunately, the police officer understood Allison's situation, and although Cole and Ruth were let off with a warning, they had to pay a hefty fine. Currently, we are not on speaking terms, and I couldn't be happier. It has been a month since Mark's accident and the entire ordeal. He is getting discharged today. Sarah had been mostly living with us during this time, and she caused no trouble at all. Allison is understandably exhausted, so Ryan will be going to assist her. One of Ryan's other sisters has also come over to lend a helping hand. This has undoubtedly been a tough period for the family, but we made it through. Everyone, including my mother-in-law and father-in-law, has distanced themselves from Cole and Ruth. To be honest, they deserve it. I am simply relieved that the nightmare is over. Regardless of what happened, Sarah is Allison's responsibility, and she should not expect others to make exceptions for her. She is the parent, and she needs to be prepared. I completely understand that some people choose to be child-free, but sometimes you do things for others even if it makes you uncomfortable or annoyed. That's how relationships are built and maintained. It's disheartening to see how selfish they have been. You're definitely not the one at fault here. Neither your brother-in-law nor your mother-in-law have acted like rational and responsible adults, and they had this coming. I'm relieved that nothing happened to Sarah, and I feel deeply sorry for Allison. You absolutely did the right thing, Opie. I live in a large apartment complex. One day, as I was heading out with my dog, I needed to take the elevator down. My dog is 8 years old and incredibly well-behaved. She doesn't bark at anyone and has a calm demeanor. She only approaches strangers in public when they signal for her to come to them. She's a medium-sized dog, and I can't imagine anyone finding her intimidating. She is always on a leash when we're outside the house, unless we're in a designated area where dogs can be off-leash. While waiting for the elevator, it arrived, and there were 2 people inside, a female aged 15 to 20 and another female aged 20 to 25. When the elevator doors opened, my dog attempted to enter, but the younger woman inside started shrieking, loudly expressing her fear of dogs. I calmly informed her that the elevator was for everyone, including dogs, and we both stepped inside. As a courtesy, I kept my dog on a very short leash, positioning her behind my legs at the opposite end of the elevator. However, the passenger continued yelling, insisting that we leave. I responded by saying she could take the next elevator if she didn't want to ride with a dog. Despite her protests, she chose to stay, and we had an uneventful 20-second journey to the ground floor. At no point did she mention being allergic to dogs, which might have warranted me taking a different elevator. Upon exiting, she made several comments, some quite rude, but I ignored her and proceeded to my car. I wonder if I was under any obligation to accommodate her by taking another elevator. I understand the analogy of the sword, meaning if it were another situation, I would have waited. However, in this case, it wasn't about my appearance. It was about my dog, whom I consider part of my family. I find it difficult to accept discrimination against my dog, just as I would against any family member. Am I in the wrong here? Should I have chosen to wait for the next elevator? I appreciate the feedback, even the critical ones. I posted this to learn, grow, and be better. I acknowledge my oversight, and I understand now that it wouldn't have cost me anything to wait for the next elevator. I will make that choice in similar situations in the future. Additional context: my dog was behind my legs, pressed against the elevator wall. The other passenger could have easily exited if they had wished. I want to clarify that I did not corner her, as some have suggested. I was positioned between the other passenger and my dog was on a very short leash. On a related note, we are planning to visit my husband's mother's house for Thanksgiving. I brought up a month ago that we should time our visit differently because my 1-year-old son, whose birthday falls in February, needs a nap and already has issues with being at their house. My son doesn't particularly enjoy visiting their house for some reason, and he's quite resistant to being put down. However, we had a breakthrough in making plans for our Thanksgiving visit. He had a full nap right before we left for their house, which made him more receptive to being there. My mother-in-law and I decided that it would be best for everyone if we met up at their house around 5 in the evening. This way, my son could have a proper nap, eat when he got there, and feel more comfortable. My brother-in-law called her yesterday, and it seems she didn't relay the information to him about our plans for a later dinner. He mentioned that he was going to his girlfriend's mom's place at 6 and wanted to do dinner at noon. This caused my mother-in-law to call my husband, and she was visibly upset, even hyperventilating, apparently because my brother-in-law wanted to change the time and was asking my husband for approval. This is where our argument began. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and my husband works full-time. I firmly believe that children up to 7 years old should have their naps because it's crucial for their development. I expressed my frustration to my husband, explaining that if I had known the time was going to change, I would have adjusted our son's sleep schedule. I didn't want to go there and have an upset child who missed his nap and wouldn't eat until 4. My husband's response was that our son would have to do things he doesn't want to in life, so it shouldn't matter if he doesn't get a proper nap. I became upset because I felt like he wasn't prioritizing our child's needs over dinner plans. I understand that I could be the one in the wrong here, but I don't see how it's fair to our son to skip his nap altogether. I just didn't understand why my husband wasn't putting our child's well-being first over dinner plans. I recognize that my child doesn't revolve around our schedule. Instead, we should adapt our schedule to meet his needs. I got upset because I couldn't comprehend why my husband wasn't putting our child's well-being first over dinner plans. I understand that I might be in the wrong here, but I don't see how it's fair to our son to skip his nap altogether. I'm torn, Reddit, so please let me know if I'm being unreasonable here. I'll gladly answer any questions to provide more clarity. Update. I've decided to give up the fight and just go when they say. Everyone else's happiness seems to matter more in this situation, and I've reached a point where I no longer care. When my husband came home, he immediately called his mom and vented his frustration about the sudden change in dinner time, emphasizing how absurd it was to cater to his older brother. He passionately expressed his annoyance for nearly 2 hours, highlighting his brother-in-law's disrespectful behavior, which we've grown to despise. Oh my goodness, everyone in this post is absolutely wild. I want to express my gratitude to all of you who truly understand the challenges of children's sleep schedules and the chaos that ensues when it's disrupted. We've decided to comply with the new time, although my husband informed his mother that we might not be able to eat much, as our son is likely to be upset, given the change in his routine. Luckily, he napped an extra hour today, so hopefully that might make things a bit easier, but who knows for sure. Additionally, I am thankful that my husband stood up for us. Initially, he brushed off the significance of our son missing his nap, saying, "Who cares?" just to pacify his mother. However, after reflecting on the situation during the rest of his shift, he came to his senses. Being the youngest in the family, he often feels overshadowed by his mother's preference for his older brothers. There's an ongoing struggle between the siblings, and my husband frequently feels disregarded. Regarding our son sleeping at their house, it's simply not an option. Unlike some children who can fall asleep anywhere, our son doesn't easily settle down. Unfortunately, my husband's family consists only of his mom, his 2 brothers, and his stepdad, with no cousins or extended family. It's a small family, which usually makes planning events ahead of time easier. We confirmed the dinner time with his mom on Sunday, and she admitted that the confusion was entirely her fault for not informing his brother about the set time. However, she has chosen to ignore my husband's inquiry about why she's prioritizing his brother's wishes over the previously agreed upon schedule. The older boys tend to use the tactic of threatening not to show up as leverage, and she believes my husband will follow suit and not attend at all. We've decided to stick with the changed dinner time, putting an end to our earlier disagreements. Yes, my husband has his flaws, just like anyone else, and I'm well aware of my own shortcomings. We make a conscious effort to acknowledge our issues and work on them as a united front, always striving to do what's best for each other. Holidays tend to be a bit challenging for both of us, creating stress and tension at an all-time high. He's been in this situation before and understands it, but the way we met is quite unconventional and wild. However, we genuinely love each other deeply. My husband works 6 days a week, putting in long hours of 9 to 10 hours a day to provide for our family and pay for the house we own. While I am the primary caregiver, he is also very present in our children's lives. Following dinner, as I was on my way home, words were exchanged about his dog's behavior as it kept taking food from my son's hands. I told my brother-in-law to back off, walked into the bathroom, and, just as the door latched, I overheard him talking to everyone about me, mentioning that I had told him to back off regarding his dog. Frustrated, I stepped out of the bathroom and impulsively grabbed a handful of freshly carved turkey, which I threw straight at his face. My husband had to step in to calm us down, and then went to find his mom, who was likely hiding upstairs, possibly in tears. He eventually convinced me to return inside to finish dinner, with the condition that we drive 2 hours away on Monday to get Hawaiian food. I firmly believe that a child who hasn't had a nap can make dinner a challenging experience for everyone. Your mother-in-law knew and understood this, which is why she agreed to change the dinner time. If you go and your son misbehaves, make sure your husband and brother-in-law step up and deal with it. What are your thoughts on today's stories? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, as it greatly supports the channel. We look forward to seeing you in the next one.